Sarah had always been proud of how well she could read people in her 10 years. As a nurse, she'd learned to spot the little signs, like how someone's breathing changed when they hurt, or the quick look in their eyes when they hid something big. But Marcus Chun was different from the first time she walked into his hospital room 3 weeks ago. The quiet hit her first, not the nice kind of quiet, like someone relaxed, but the heavy on purpose. Quiet of someone with too much to say and no place to say it. Marcus lay against his pillows, his dark hair over his forehead, staring out the window with a strong look that made Sarah's chest feel tight with wonder. "Good morning, Emma Chun," she said, fixing the IV drip that she knew as well as her own face. "How are we feeling today?" Marcus turned his deep brown eyes to her, and for a second Sarah forgot to breathe. There was something spooky in his look. A story that wanted to be told, a secret pushing at his lips like a bird trapped wanting to fly better, he said simply, though they both knew it wasn't all true. The car crash had broken his leg bad and 3 ribs, but Sarah thought his body hurts weren't the worst ones he had. She tried all kinds of ways to get him to open up, soft questions about his family, easy talk about the weather, even bringing books from the hospital library. But Marcus stayed polite and far away, answering only what he had to, never giving more than needed for his care. It wasn't until the afternoon of his 3rd week that Sarah saw something new. She'd come into his room to find him staring at his phone with a face so open and weak that she almost turned and left. But then he quickly hid the phone under his pillow, putting on his usual face of careful nothing. "Is everything okay?" she asked, really worried. Marcus looked at her for a long time, and Sarah had the odd feeling he was thinking hard about something big. Finally, he shook his head. "A little, just thinking about home. It was the first personal thing he'd shared, and Sarah held it like a small present. "Where's home for you?" "Portland," he said, then seemed to stop himself. "Well, it was. I'm not sure anymore." The word stayed between them like a bridge. Sarah wasn't sure she should walk across, but something in his voice, a lone feeling like her own, made her step forward instead of away. "I grew up in a small town, Oregon," she said, sitting in the chair by his bed. "Sometimes home isn't a place, you know. Sometimes it's a feeling or a person or even just a memory of how things were." Marcus looked at her face with those searching eyes, and Sarah felt her cheeks get warm. There was something pulling about his quiet strength, the way he seemed to see right to the parts of her she usually kept hidden. "You're not from here either?" He noticed it wasn't a question. "No. I moved here 5 years ago after." She stopped, surprised at wanting to share. "After my engagement ended." "Sometimes you need a new place to figure out who you really are." The talk was stopped by Dr. Williams coming for his evening check, but Sarah couldn't shake the feeling something had changed between them that night. She thought about Marcus long after work, wondering about the sadness in his eyes and how he said home like it was a word that didn't fit in his mouth anymore. The next morning brought a surprise. Sarah got to the hospital to find Marcus's room empty, his bed made neat. For a second, fear grabbed her chest. Had he gotten worse? Had she missed signs he was in trouble? "Mr. Chun is in physical therapy," said Janet, another nurse doctor. "Wants to see how Hay's doing before discharge plans." Discharge, the word hit Sarah hard. She'd gotten used to their morning talks, to how Marcus's face would soften a bit when she came in. Thinking of him leaving, going back to whatever hard thing waited in Portland, made her feel strangely empty. When Marcus came back to his room that afternoon, he seemed different, more upset, always checking his phone and looking at the door, like waiting or fearing someone. "The therapy went well," Sarah said, looking at his chart. "Dr. Williams thinks you might go home by the weekend." Marcus's jaw got tight just a little. "That's good news," he said, but his voice said something else. Sarah found herself staying in his room longer than needed, fixing things that were fine, checking stuff that worked perfect. Finally, she couldn't pretend anymore. "Marcus," she said soft, "is there something you want to talk about? You seem troubled." He looked at her then, with such open weakness that Sarah's breath stopped for a second. She thought he might really tell her what was so heavy on his heart, But then his phone buzzed with a text, and his walls came back up. "I'm fine," he said, but his hands shook as he grabbed the phone that evening. Sarah made a choice that went against all the work rules she'd learned. Instead of going home after work, she walked by Marcus's room, pulled by a strong need to check on him. The hall was dim, and she could see through the half-open door that Marcus was asleep. But something made her stop. There was a soft light from near his bed, and she could hear quiet music playing work. Curiosity fought with personal worry as Sarah stepped quietly into the room. Marcus was asleep, but his phone was on the table by the bed, glowing with an open video call on the screen. Sarah could see a woman with long dark hair sleeping in what looked like her own hospital bed. The pieces started to fit with sad clearness. The phone calls he never took in front of her, the way he pulled back when she talked about going home, the deep sadness that followed him like a shadow. Sarah started to leave, feeling like she didn't belong in this private moment. But Marcus moved and opened his eyes. When he saw her there, his face showed surprise, shame, and finally a kind of tired giving up. Her name is Elena, he said, quiet, not turning off the call. She was supposed to be my wife. The words stayed in the air, heavy with hurt and loss. Sarah wanted to go, give him space for whatever talk needed to happen, but something in his voice kept her there. The accident, Marcus kept going, his voice just above a whisper. It wasn't just me in the car. Elena was. She was driving. We were coming back from looking at a place for our wedding when the other car went through the red light. Sarah's heart hurt as she understood. On the phone screen she could see Elena hooked to machines, her breathing helped by a machine. She's been in a coma for 3 weeks. Marcus said, finally reaching to touch the screen with endless softness. The doctors aren't sure if she'll wake up, but I talk to her every night just in case she can hear me. I tell her about my day, about the nurses who care for me, about how much I miss her voice. Tears stung Sarah's eyes as she watched this man share his heart with someone who couldn't answer, who might never answer again. The phone calls she'd seen, the careful space he kept, it all made sense. Now that's why you can't go home, she said, soft, because home isn't a place without her. Marcus nodded, unable to talk for a second. The doctors here keep saying I should leave, but Portland is where all our memories are. Our apartment, the coffee shop of our first date, the park where I asked her to marry me. How do I go back to that when she might never? He couldn't finish, but he didn't need to. Sarah got the hard spot he was in, stuck between the life he'd been making with Elena and the awful chance that life might be gone forever. I'm sorry, Marcus said, wiping his eyes with his handbag. I shouldn't bother you with this. You're just doing your job, and here I am breaking down on you. Don't say sorry, Sarah said, surprising herself by sitting in the chair by his bed. Sometimes we need someone to see our pain. It doesn't make it less, but it makes it feel not so alone. They sat in nice quiet for a while, watching Elena's calm face on the phone screen. Sarah thought about love, the kind that keeps going, even when hope seems gone. The kind that keeps someone linked over miles and machines, and the scary not knowing of tomorrow. Tell me about her, Sarah said, gentle. What was she like? What do you think she'd tell you if she could? Sarah asked, gentle. Marcus was quiet for a long time, thinking about the question. She'd probably tell me I was being silly for staying in the hospital longer than needed, he said with a small sad smile. Elena never liked when I stayed sad. She always said life was too short to waste being scared of what might happen. She sounds wise. She was. Marcus struggled with how to say it. I don't know how to talk about her anymore. Now words feel like lying, but past words feel like quitting. Sarah reached out and touched his hand, soft. Maybe that's okay. Maybe love doesn't fit neat into words of time anyway. They talked until early morning, sharing stories and fears, and the kind of open truths that usually come out in the dark. Sarah found herself telling Marcus about her own mixed up time with love, that engagement that ended when she saw she loved the idea of marriage more than the man. I spent so long trying to make feelings that weren't there, she admitted. I thought I was broken, that I didn't know how to love right, and watching you love Elena even in all this, not knowing I think maybe I just hadn't met the right person. Yet the words stayed between them, meaning things neither was ready to look at. Sarah felt her cheeks burn as she saw what she'd shared, but Marcus just squeezed. Her hand-soft love isn't supposed to be hard. He said quiet, not the real kind with Elena. It was like breathing. Natural and needed, and so basic I couldn't think of living without it as morning light came through the hospital windows. Sarah knew she needed to go. Her work would start soon. And she needed some sleep. But she also knew something big had changed. Between them, that the careful workspace she'd kept wasn't possible anymore. Marcus, she said, standing to leave. Whatever happens with Elena, whatever you choose, you don't have to face it alone, I know. I'm just your nurse, but you're not just anything, Marcus. Stopped her, looking at her with those searching eyes. You're the first person in 3 weeks who's made me feel like a real person instead of just hurts and problems to fix. The next few days went by in a mix of meaningful looks and easy talk. Sarah found herself excited for work in a way that worried her, while Marcus seemed to brighten when she came in. They didn't talk about Elena again, but her being there stayed between them like an unsaid question. It was on Friday morning that everything changed. Sarah got to work to find Marcus packing his few things. His face set in hard, sure lines. You're being let out? She asked, though it was clear this afternoon. Marcus said, if set up to move to a rehab place in Portland, I need to be closer to Elena, and the doctors here have done all they can for me. Sarah felt her heart break a little. She'd known this day was coming, but wasn't ready for how much it would hurt to see him leave. That's great news, she said, making her voice happy. You must be excited to go home. Marcus stopped packing and looked at her straight. Sarah, about the other night. I want you to know, talking with you, getting to know you, it's been the best part of this bad dream. You made me remember there are still good things. Even when all feels broken, you don't have to say anything. Sarah said, fast, scared of where this talk might go. I get your spot. Elena is lucky to have someone who loves her so fully. She is. Marcus agreed. And I will always love her. That Sarah, he stopped, seeming to gather bravery. If things were different, if I had met you at another time in my life. He didn't finish, but he didn't need to. Sarah could see in his eyes all the chances that would never happen. All the what-ifs that would stay unanswered. That afternoon, Sarah watched from her spot as Marcus was wheeled out of the hospital. He looked back, once meeting her eyes across the busy hall, and the smile he gave was both thankful and sad. For weeks after, Sarah thought about him all the time. She wondered if Elena had woken up, if Marcus had found his way back to the life they'd been making. She wondered if he ever thought about their late talk, about the link that had sparked between them in his worst time. It was 2 months later that Sarah got her answer. She was on a hard shift when another nurse came to her with a strange look. Sarah, Janet said, there's someone here to see you. He says he's an old patient. Sarah's heart started racing as she went to the lobby. She found Marcus standing by the windows, looking healthier than ever, but with something heavy in his face. He said simple when he saw her coming. Hi, she said back, suddenly shy. How are you? How is Elena? Marcus was quiet for a long time, and Sarah felt her stomach drop. She woke up, he said, at last 3 weeks ago. The doctors say she'll get all better. Relief filled Sarah, followed by a harder feeling she wasn't ready to name. That's amazing news. You must be so happy. I am, Marcus said, and she could hear the truth in his voice. But Sarah, there's something I need to tell you. Something I need you to understand. He took her to a quiet corner of the lobby, away from the busy people and workers. When they sat, he turned to her full. When Elena woke up, Marcus started. The first thing she asked was about the wedding. She wanted to know if we'd picked a new date, if we still wanted the same place, and I couldn't answer her. Not for real. Sarah's breath stopped. What do you mean? I mean, something changed for me in those weeks here, meeting you, talking with you, seeing what kind of person you are. It made me see what Elena and I had was nice, but also safe, easy. We loved each other, but we were more like best friends than in love. He stopped, running his hands through his hair in a way Sarah knew well. The crash, the coma, all of it gave me time to really think about what I wanted from life, and I kept thinking of that night we talked, of how you listened without judging, of how you made me feel understood in a way I'd never felt before. Sarah felt tears in her eyes. Marcus, you can't. Elena needs you after all she's been through. Elena and I talked. Marcus said soft, really talked for the first time in years, and it turns out she'd been having doubts to the engagement. The wedding plans all felt like something we did because it was expected, not because we really wanted. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small worn envelope. She wrote you a letter. He said, giving it to Sarah. She wanted me to give it to you with shaky hands. Sarah opened the envelope and unfolded the single paper. Inside, Elena's writing was pretty but strong. Dear Sarah, Marcus has told me about you, about the kindness you showed him during the darkest time of both our lives. I want you to know I don't see you as the person who came between us. I see you as the person who helped him realize what was missing from our relationship. We've decided to end our engagement not because of the accident or the coma, but because we both deserve the kind of love that feels like coming home, the kind of love that can't be planned or forced or settled for. Marcus talks about you with a light in his eyes that I never inspired. And that's okay. Love isn't about owning or having to. It's about wanting someone to be happy, even if that happy doesn't include you. Take care of him, Sarah, and let him take care of you. You both deserve the kind of love story that makes people believe in magic with thanks and care. Elena. Sarah looked up through her tears to find Marcus watching her close. She's amazing, she whispered. She is. Marcus agreed, and she's right. You and I, what we have is different. It's scary, and not sure, and probably totally nuts, but it's real in a way I've never felt before. He took her hands in his, and Sarah felt that gnome spark of link stronger now, without secrets between them. I'm not asking you to jump into anything, Marcus said. I know this is tangled, and I know you have reasons to be careful, but Sarah, I'm asking for a chance, a real chance, to see what this could be between us. Sarah looked into his eyes, those deep brown eyes that had caught her from the first day, and saw her future. They're not the safe, planned future she'd always thought, but something wild and not expected and full of chance. I'm scared, she admitted. So am I, Marcus said, but Elena taught me something big. Life is too short to waste being afraid of what might happen. And you taught me something even bigger. Sometimes the most beautiful things come from the most surprising places. As Sarah sat there in the hospital lobby where their story started, surrounded by sounds of life and healing and hope, she realized that love really didn't fit neat into times. It was an all months at once, past, now, and future, linking people in ways that didn't make sense and went against what you'd think she thought about the quiet room where she'd first found Marcus's secret, about the phone calls and late talks and all the small moments that led them to this impossible pretty place. Yes, she said at last, her voice strong and sure. Yes, let's see what this could be. And as Marcus leaned forward to kiss her, Sarah knew that sometimes the deepest love stories start not with a cute meeting or big move, but with the simple act of seeing someone truly fully in their weakest time. Room had been too quiet, and what had been hiding under the pretend bed was his broken heart, hopeful and ready to love again. That sometimes the nicest finds are the ones that change everything. The ones that teach us love isn't about being perfect or timing or having all answers. Sometimes love is about being brave. The brave to be open to take risks and to believe that even in loss and not knowing something amazing can still grow. As they walked out of the hospital together, hand in hand, Sarah smiled at the thought their story was just starting. She'd spent years caring for others, healing their hurts and easing their pain. But Marcus had done something else, had healed the part of her that stopped believing in the kind of love that makes everything else not matter. And that was the most beautiful secret of all.